The following discussion is not necessarily the views of all involved. The goal is to start open and honest discussion in the Christian worldview. Like all things, weigh what you hear with what you know and join us in our pursuit for the truth. Enjoy the podcast.
God was like, take your army, but only those who pee sitting down. What?
I can see Vikings as like the frogs of barbarians.
What?
I'm sorry, dude. Can I be wrong sometimes?
No, I won't allow it. I think you're too good for that.
No, but I think you then should correct me out of love and grace.
He is. You should see what he's mean. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Second Rate Saints podcast. I'm one of your hosts here, Caleb. To my left is...
I'm Josh. To my left is...
I'm Joel, and to my left...
Straight across. It's me, Caleb, again. We've gone full circle. Kind of. It's just the three of us. Just hanging around. Sadly, we are missing Colton and Stuart, as per the norm. It's great. It's very sad. Very, very, very sad.
Literally crying and shaking.
Yeah. Joel.
Yeah?
We've done things on the internet. We've done that occasionally.
No one's asked us to stop yet.
And what do we do?
We are releasing a podcast once a week. This podcast, Second Rate Saints. And you can check out everything else we're trying to do on secondratesaints.com. If you have any long form questions for us, you can hit us up at secondratesaints@gmail.com or just use the chat feature on our website. We're also on Instagram and Twitter, X, whatever. But not nearly as active on there as, sometimes. We also have been doing a new thing called Buy Me a Coffee, which is if you'd like to do a small scale donation towards the future of Second Rate Saints, feel free to do that at buymeacoffee.com/secondраtesaints. So.
Awesome. Josh, I almost called you Joel. Sorry. Josh.
Yes.
You've been known to read books. What have you read?
So I'm like 10 pages away from finishing this book. But it's great. So we've done a few of these on the podcast. It is another short studies in biblical theology, which I love.
Great series.
Great series. And this one is a short 111 page, 116 page book on marriage and the mystery of the gospel by Ray Ortlund. It's great. So he breaks it down to marriage in Genesis, marriage in the law, wisdom, and prophets.
Is it a sacrament?
No. And then marriage in the New Testament and the marriage in the world today.
Okay.
And it's all based on, which it should be, the presentation of how marriage is a representation and how we live out the love of Christ for the church. And what's interesting, though, is in normal biblical theology, you build up through the typology and the themes and the analogies and the metaphors to this better image.
Things get weaved together. They get set up. They get set up separate, and then they begin to weave together.
Yeah. Except this one doesn't do that. The first half of the book is all the presentation of marriage in Genesis. And the rest of the Bible is showing how it never lived up to that.
Oh, that's super interesting. Just as like a methodology.
Yeah. And then it only finds its fulfillment in Christ.
Christ's love for the church.
Yeah. And so he does a really good job. Like the first half of the book is just Genesis 1, 2, and 3. And he's breaking down the image of what does it mean that God made the man? And he's unapologetically complementarianism, not egalitarian.
Okay.
Well, if you're focusing on just that as your structure, the translation of either helper or those who, it's either helper
head with helper.
Yeah. Head with helper, or there's another translation that egalitarians will go to. It made a match or made a.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question for you, just because it's part of my own interpretation of Genesis 3. How does he frame Adam's naming of Eve in Genesis 3?
I think for the sake of having to delve into name theology, he kind of avoids it.
Okay, that's fair.
For the size of the book.
His thing's a whole Bible theology. He's not.
Yeah. But the point that he makes is that he gets into her name being because she's the mother of all that lives.
Yeah.
And he expresses how beautiful that is. And the interesting note that he does that after. That it's almost a reminder that it's not lost completely.
Okay.
That the marriage, their marriage, but also marriage period, is not a completely lost cause.
Yeah.
And so, but what I love is his presentation of why God made Eve and Adam. So he made Adam to work the garden, and then he specifically chooses, of course, God already knew of the Adam being alone, but he specifically says the garden is not good without him having a helper.
Yeah.
It's not complete. It's not finished. And so he intentionally makes Adam see that there is no one fit, not just naming them, but he intentionally, so that Adam arrives at the conclusion that there is no one for him.
And that whatever is for him is not part of the thing that he has dominion over.
Yes. And what's interesting is the presentation of her is not because he's lonely, but because it is better that he is not alone. And he connects that to why God made creation his wife, Christ's wife. Because it's not that God was alone in existence, but that he purposely made a helper fit for his son, so that because it was better that God was not alone.
Holy moly. Hold on.
I was reading a book by Richard Lintz that goes into a very similar concept.
Yeah. So it's not just that God loves and wants to spread love. That's why he made the world. But if we're going to take the marriage to the eschatological point, it's God said, I want to make a helper fit for my son, who Adam is compared to, because it is better that he is not alone.
Pope John Paul II's book, Theology of the Body, also goes there.
Yeah.
So I'm interesting.
Yeah.
Quick
and
question.
I thought that was the most beautiful.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that it showed up in that as well as Theology of the Body. Quick question before we move on to the topic at hand.
Yes.
The cover.
Yes. It is. Okay. So what I love about it is it's the two symbols for male and female, like the circles with the cross hanging below or the arrow pointing to the top right. But they're linked
Isn't it Aphrodite's mirror? Isn't that what it is?
Potentially.
Yeah.
But they're linked.
And they can't be separated.
Yeah. Yeah.
So 4 to 5.
The cover?
Yeah.
I'm going to, I like the teal.
I don't know. You're
Greenish
colorblind.
blue. Yeah. That's why I'm asking you.
Well, I'm asking what you like the cover.
Well, no.
You like the brown
what color
cover?
is it? What color is it? Please,
It's
just
teal.
tell me.
It's teal.
I like it. Whatever it's called, whatever I'm seeing, I like. It's great. It's short, and it's some of the best theology I've read in a while.
Awesome.
He does such a good job at handling the complementarian issue while saying, no, this is beautiful.
Right.
No, the reason why it sucks now is because it can't be what it's supposed to be.
Right.
And that's why we hate it.
Yeah.
And the reason why we hate complementarianism is because of the curse causing us to hate each other.
Right.
And when we focus on God first, you can see glimpses of that Edenic marriage every once in a while. And you could see it in other people a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's a little reminder of what it could be like and what it's going to be like.
You see that even in some secular depictions of what that marriage relationship, not all, and maybe not even most modern, but you do see that sometimes even in secular depictions. Awesome. Like that. I'll have to give it a read at some point.
Yeah.
But moving on to our topic at hand, which for those who have clicked on the video or audio, you already know what it is. It's our continuation of our Samuel our walk through Samuel. We're getting through to the very end almost. There's going to be one more episode after this.
I love that this has turned into such a long series. I've really enjoyed picking through it. Together.
Fun fact. I don't want to spoil something for you, but there is a second Samuel.
No.
Oh my goodness. I don't want to do it that bad.
But before we jump into the text at hand, what happened previously on Samuel? Don't repeat me. Okay.
Previously.
I know.
No.
It always happens.
Now Josh has to say it because everyone said it.
Previously on Samuel.
That's pretty good.
Cue theme.
Yes. Dun, dun, dun. So we talked about Saul and the medium of Endor.
Imagine what the large will do.
I said the joke then too.
I think it should be changed to Necromancer of Endor, but that's besides the point. Also, it sounds cooler, but that's just our English heading. So what we talked about was David is going to war with the Philistines against Saul.
Mm-hmm.
And Saul's terrified
Mm-hmm.
because Saul has gone to God. He's laid in the tabernacle before the ephod to try to invoke dreams from God.
But he doesn't have the ephod there.
But he doesn't have the ephod. He's tried to pray to God. He's tried to call out, make sacrifices, do anything to get any help from God for whatever reason, probably to try to ensure victory, not to build relationship, be contrite, do the right thing.
Yeah.
But he's trying to go to God. God's not answering.
He's seeing the consequences of his sin, and he has attrition.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He just wants to avoid the problem.
For a definition of contrition and attrition, look at our confessions episode.
Yes.
This has been Joel plugging another episode out of an episode of the podcast.
And so Samuel did a good thing as the king. He sent and caused the removal of the necromancers and the sorcerers and the diviners.
Saul did
Sorry,
a good thing.
yes.
Yeah.
And so, but now he's running out of options. And so he goes to one. He gets his men to go find one, and they come with one immediately and by name, which means they probably knew her.
Yeah. It doesn't even say that they like went out and found it. It was just, oh yeah, I know where one is.
Which means his trusted men already were not obeying him. And this is a point you've made, Joel, that they're like his whole family, everyone around him at the terebinth tree, everybody's against him. He's paranoid. He's separating himself from everybody. So he goes to this woman disguised because he was the one that lost her a job. So he wanted to make sure that she didn't know he was Saul. They do a thing. They want to talk to Samuel. Samuel comes up. She's terrified, seemingly because she might have been a charlatan and this isn't supposed to work.
I don't think so. I think it's because Samuel's not being captured in the pit.
Yes.
And she's like, the Hittite ritual's not working.
Yes. And Saul's like, hey, what do you see? And she's like, it's God. It's an Elohim. And the spirit comes up and it's Samuel, the one Saul wanted to talk to and Samuel gives him the saddest message ever. And it's the same message he had to give to Eli in the beginning of the book, which was you and your sons are going to die today. And that's incredibly sad because
it's all over.
Oh my.
Because the thing we pointed out was that was the very first prophecy Samuel gave.
Yeah.
And Samuel was raised from the dead, so it was the last one he could give.
Prophecy from the grave.
Kill from the grave.
Josh turned into a kettle for a second.
Yeah.
For the
Ordnance ready.
For the Call of Duty players there.
Yeah.
So Saul just gives up.
He's so sad.
And Samuel's just like, well, of course God's not answering your call because I told you he's revoked you as king.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've continued to sin against him and you've done nothing. Why would you even attempt this? I told you.
Note that Samuel doesn't say, and what are you doing with necromancers?
Yeah.
He's just like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so she gives him some food, a very important meal. She kills probably her only fattened calf for him, provides food for him and his men, which was a huge hospitality thing. And this is after she finds out that he is, in fact, the king. And then he goes away. And that leads us to today.
Yeah.
Shall I read?
Please.
Okay. Now the Philistines had gathered all their forces at Aphek, and the Israelites were encamped by the spring that is in Jezreel. As the lords of the Philistines were passing on by hundreds and by thousands, David and his men were passing on in the rear with Achish. The commanders of the Philistines said, "Where are these Hebrews doing here? What are these Hebrews doing here?" And Achish said to the commanders of the Philistines, "Is this not David, the servant of Saul, king of Israel, who has been with me now for days and years since he deserted to me? I have found no fault in him to this day." But the commanders of the Philistines were angry with him, and the commanders of the Philistines said to him, "Send the men back, that he may return to the place to which you have assigned him. He shall not go down with us to battle, lest in the battle he becomes an adversary for us. For how could this fellow reconcile himself to his Lord? Would it not be with the heads of the men here? Is not this David, to whom they sing to one another in dance? Saul has struck down his thousands and David his 10,000s. The man's smart.
Which one? The lords?
The lords that are saying, "Hey, don't bring this guy."
This sounds like bad idea.
So to start us off, Jezreel, the spring, that's the same spring, it's the spring of Herod as well, which is the one mentioned in Judges 7:1. That's Gideon. That's where God does the whole, drink this water.
Oh.
Yeah, this is the same area. They think it is. Some scholars say it can't be because that's a terrible military position to be in, because you're north of Israel then. And the Philistines would have been coming from the west. But there's a good chance that he's actually circling Israel. Like he's going up north to attack downwards and trying to get like some Canaanite favor, which is why him saying, "Why are these Hebrews with you?" is kind of important.
Also, doing it that way is you'd be fighting along the mountaintops.
Yeah.
Rather than actually butting up against them. So fair enough.
There was also some people saying that Saul was kind of making a parallel advance where he was following them along the mountaintop.
Yeah.
Like he was following them from the west up to the northwest, and then up to the north, trying to kind of block them off.
Because it does say he's on the mountains.
Yeah.
In the previous
Anyways,
passage.
I thought it was interesting to tie it back into Gideon because it's a little bit what David is going to do is a little bit Gideon-like.
Yep.
In my mind.
He's going to become somewhat of a ruler, and then his son's going to betray him.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well,
I don't think that's where he was going.
No.
I think God's plan for Gideon is fulfilled in David, right? Because it says Gideon basically dies off and his sons and daughters go astray, right? That they go back to their old ways. But Gideon's kind of call to right worship and even call to
kingship,
militaristic kind of, you are taking the Lord's land now. Like you are devoting this to the Lord, which was last visited in Gideon. And Gideon is referenced a lot in pro-monarchy stuff.
Yeah.
Because he was the last one they tried to make king before David.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a big kingship connection there too. That's maybe in massive undertones in Gideon, but
it's just weird that God is using the same location, the same spring twice to solidify military power to Israel's future king.
Fair enough.
That might be an apparent weirdness, though, because the land is so small that this whole scenario is taking place.
You're
over.
not supposed to argue for coincidence. That's not your job.
That's
my
not.
job.
Hey, I'm allowed to play multiple
But
roles.
if the reader has this place in their mind, right? Like if we...
Yeah. Oh, Jezreel.
Monkeys.
And the Bible doesn't do anything by accident.
Yeah, monkey sees pattern.
Yeah.
And
right.
and to your point, the Bible doesn't do anything by accident.
Yeah.
When
Good
it says
idea.
the lords, like the lords and the commanders of the Philistine armies, do you guys just think that these are the kings of the other 5 cities? Or the other 4 cities of the 5 Philistine cities?
That were visited by the ark?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a safe assumption.
I think so.
Depends on how long it's been.
Well, I mean, they have other kings. They may not be the kings exactly with the ark.
Yeah, but the same role.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same position.
I
Because
think so.
we know that they were a kind of more like a confederacy of city-states, really.
Yeah.
Mm.
Which matches the Greekness.
Mhm.
Same with the champion warfare.
The proto-Greek kind of culture.
Yeah.
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 I did see stuff that was paralleling. What was it, chapter 4 or whatever, the one with the Ark side quest.
Yeah.
With this passage, which
Which is a great episode, by the way.
but it is kind of showing the kings of the Philistines as being Dagon, and and David as being the Ark, right? Because it's now they are trying to use David for warfare rather than using the Ark for their warfare.
Mm.
And then he's called Angel of the Lord later on in the passage.
and
But
Saul
that's crazy.
Saul does a similar thing of trying to get God to fight his battle for him
Yeah.
in going to the Witch of Endor.
Mm-hmm.
Also, do you guys find it interesting so that in verse 4, when the lords are talking, for how could this fellow, David, reconcile himself to his Lord? Would it not be with the heads of the men here?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's in their mind,
Mm-hmm.
David is still loyal to his Lord,
Mm-hmm.
Saul.
Yeah.
Well, they don't want to put themselves in a place where betraying them could get him
Back
back
into
into his
Saul's-
kingdom
Yeah.
from exile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, there's a lot of connections here because Saul was given the same response as Eli's family, which is you and your sons will die, right? It's also an attempt that Eli's sons and Saul are doing, which is trying to get the Lord to fight their battles for them out of fear. The Philistines are present. They're in the same area.
Yeah.
David as the ark is being manipulated and moved.
Yeah.
It's almost as if the beginning and the end of the book was trying to tell us something about the end of the book.
Yeah. The problem is, I don't know if we can read too much between the two.
Mhm. I think if it starts in the next 3 chapters talking about glory being taken, that might be the thing.
Okay.
But shall we continue?
Yes, please.
Then Achish called David and said to him, "As the Lord lives, you have been honest, and to me it seems right that you should march out in with me in the campaign. For I have found nothing wrong in you from the day that you coming to me to this day. Nevertheless, the lords do not approve of you. So go back now, go peaceably, that you may not displease the lords of the Philistines." And David said to Achish, "But what have I done? What have you found in your servant from that day? I entered your service until now, that I may not go and fight against the enemies of my lord and king." And Achish answered David and said, "I know that you are as blameless in the sight as the angel of God. Nevertheless, the commanders of the Philistines have said, 'He shall not go with us into the battle.' Now then, rise early in the morning with your servants of your Lord who come with you, and start early in the morning and depart as soon as you have light." So David set out with his men early in the morning to return to the land of the Philistines, but the Philistines went up to Jezreel. It's interesting that he calls Achish his king.
How about, so those who follow along in their Bible will notice that in verse 6, Achish calls God, David's God, capital Lord, all caps. And for those who know their English Bible translation stuff, they'll know that that's stand-in for Yahweh, the tetragrammaton.
Yeah. The covenant name of God.
Yeah. Which is not normally said by pagans.
True.
Yeah.
However,
Do you think that, sorry?
this is another point of connection, is that as the passage goes on about in this scenario, the Lord gets brought in. In the previous passage with the ark scenario, you see them refer to the gods of Israel, and then the God of Israel, and then Lord when the priest shows up.
I think that's arbitrary.
But by the presence of David being with the king, you see a relationship between Achish and the Lord improve.
I don't think so. What I think it is I think David is still very adamant that he worships Israel's God.
Yeah.
And I think out of comfort for David, Achish goes, "No, by your God, you know?"
but he doesn't say your God.
No, but that's what he's swearing by.
Yes. I guess what I'm saying is that by David's presence and by the ark's presence, you both see a growing recognition of the truth of God.
But I don't know if there's a growing recognition. We don't see a development in Akish. It's just he just says it.
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think?
What do you think of him calling him an angel of the Lord? Well, I know it doesn't say it calls him. Says you are as blameless as an angel of the Lord.
Yeah.
But there are multiple other places in 1st and 2nd Samuel where David is called an angel, which is weird.
Yes. There is a difference though between an and the.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But the translation's different.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, David eventually meets the angel of the Lord.
The angel of the Lord. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. He almost gets killed by him.
Yeah.
What happens if you go back in time and kill your own grandfather? That's pre-incarnate Jesus almost killing David. Anyway,
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Let's do a quantum leap of David.
Oh, hey, do you want to make another connection? The angel of the Lord is the one that brings Gideon into the service. He's the one that sits underneath the tree.
that's
Yep.
That's true.
Well, what
It's
is it?
almost like the Bible's written by.
It's almost like the king of creation is the one that inaugurates the kings of the work of his people.
Yeah. I'm there. I'm
I'm going to stop you right there. I 100% agree.
That's true. That's true.
that's an old cut. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, isn't it Hamilton Jr.? Was it James Hamilton?
James
Jr.?
M. Hamilton Jr.
Yeah, who has the whole thing where every occurrence of the angel of the Lord in the Old Testament should be seen as a Christophany. Right? Like it.
Which book?
I thought typology was that.
Yeah, he brings it up, but
I don't know if he makes as drastic of a claim as that. He would definitely lean that way. That's for sure.
most.
By Christophany, I just mean Christ,
Yeah.
whether pre-incarnate or incarnate, is
And
the angel of the
we're
Lord.
eventually going to do content on the angel of the Lord.
100%.
But
so excited.
yeah. But generally for the audience, they might get confused. An angel of the Lord is usually in reference to a messenger of God.
Yeah.
The angel of the Lord comes with specific traits and names and personalities with him that are different than other angels. For example, the angel of the Lord will speak, and then it will say, the Lord spoke. He will be worshipped, and he won't stop people from worshiping him.
Yeah.
Whereas other angels will. He will do things, and then later passages will say, the Lord saved us. And so it's kind of seen that the angel of the Lord is a manifestation of God doing something. A representative, so to speak, that when you see him, you see God.
Wait a second. Are you just talking about Jesus?
Yes, Jesus made that very same claim. When you see me, you see the Father. The angel of the Lord was the one in the pillar of fire. The angel of the Lord was the one that brought Gideon to start his fight.
Well, and then you get Jude, where it talks about Jesus being the one who led them out of Israel.
I was just about to bring that up.
Led them out of Egypt, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Interesting note. Early manuscripts differ on that, whether or not it's just Lord or whether it's Jesus.
Cool.
I need to do a deep dive on it, and maybe I'll turn it into a blog article, but we'll see.
And then you see the angel of the Lord and God, it swaps, is the one that fights with Jacob.
Yeah.
And specifically, when the angel of the Lord pulls them out of Israel, in that, Jacob then says in Genesis 50, which is the passage that does it for me, in his little blessing, he says, the God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd all the days life long to this day, the angel who has redeemed me from all evil,
Wild.
Interesting. But back to our passage.
Yeah.
So that's the point is that we're making is that when David is called an angel of the Lord, there is a terminological difference that when you say the angel of the Lord versus an angel of the Lord.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But it makes sense because David's success in combat is because the Lord is fighting for him.
Yeah.
In the same way that when you see an angel of the Lord annihilate 180,000 Assyrians, the conclusion you have to make is it's not because of the angel's own power, but it's because God has given his enemies over to him.
Question for you. David's response to Achish's claim, like, hey, you just had your back. They don't trust you. I trust you, but this is just the way it is. Don't feel bad about it.
Don't read anything into this.
Yeah. David's response before Achish doubles down. So in verse 8, and David said to Achish, but what have I done? What have you found in your servant from the day I entered your service until now, that I might not go and fight against the enemies of my lord the king?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Several commentators, from what I found, although most chiefly Ralph Klein from Word Biblical, because I think was it V. Phillips Long in the Tyndale commentary, Joel, that you were reading, also kind of puts forward this argument where it's David's use of the word Lord in that sentence is ambiguous.
Yeah.
As though he's like, he's really talking about Saul, but he's making it look as though he's talking about Achish when he says, my Lord, the king.
Yeah.
Or is he saying Saul is now God's enemy, his Lord?
Mm-hmm. I'm not sold on how fast Klein and Long make that jump of is just like, oh yeah, no, it's a double. It's like hidden meaning and like
leaving David.
Can I make an
blameless
argument?
Kind of a thing. Yeah.
You can. That sounded so mean. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that.
We have noted throughout this series how
David lies.
Yes. I want to say this in a better word. How double-tongued he is. How his words often mean two things. He often says one thing and means another, or he often says one thing and it's for the safety of something, but he's not saying the truth, or he says something to the defense of his men, like with Achish, where he lies to him, tells him about he's attacked different people than he has, and then he eliminated those whole people groups. Like, he's very intentional.
He killed women and children just to make sure that Achish didn't find out.
Yeah. So I think he's very intentional with his words for the betterment of himself and others, while still technically
here's the thing.
Saying the right thing. I think it's completely within his character to do this.
I think it's completely within his character to also go, all right, if Saul is the enemy of God.
No, but that's what I mean. He's saying
to trick Achish?
To trick Achish. He's saying
I mean like he's not tricking Achish. Like, the enemies of my Lord, I serve Achish at the moment, or even if you want to say I serve, he serves, he's in referencing God.
Yes, okay.
But he'd be thinking the armies of Israel that Achish is going to fight. Yeah, I think that's also within his character.
Well, I think you talked past me and I wasn't listening to you, so that's fair. I agree in that the reason for the ambiguity is because he's talking to Achish, but in his head he's saying it in such a way that it's faithful for him to say that about God. That he's saying Lord about God, but it would sound to Achish like he's saying to him.
Is Joel going to bring in the approach of the monarchist propaganda thing?
It is monarchist propaganda. It is like
100%.
Like, even if it's not what actually happened. Hey, I have no problem saying that for some of this stuff.
Well, the perspective is there.
Perspective is there.
Weird.
But No, I think that if you wanted to say this is a sugarcoating of him serving the Philistine king, you can. I also, it would be hard to think of David as a traitor here, right? Like I know you said that he could just turn on him and I'll serve the enemies of the Lord, whoever those might be.
Well, the thing is, if Saul is rebelling against God,
yeah.
Who's a bigger enemy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
who's the enemies of like it doesn't seem sure it may be treacherous towards the people of Israel. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But if the armies are going to war because their king is corrupt,
yeah, and he's leading them down,
then technically he would be doing the same thing as the exile, which is he's bringing judgment on the people of God who have betrayed him.
And so I don't know. I tend to, although I like David, I really like David.
Mm-hmm.
He's awesome. I don't like
how he's
whitewashed
epic.
Things have been.
Yes. Well, I've made that point before where it's, I think the only difference technically between him and Saul is that when he's confronted with his sin, he goes, my bad, and then changes. But
Which is a common approach.
Horrible. Anyways.
He's a
Dude's
warlord.
an animal,
Yeah.
which is crazy. Like very clever, but like.
I mean, list his rap sheet like on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Right? And you could put him against most horrible world leaders today.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Like
Different
people
era.
that we absolute. Oh,
But
100%.
But he could play the harp.
Yes. No, but this is what I mean is that the difference between him and these other evil kings, including Saul, is that when confronted by God.
But
he
also
was
in the
contrite.
ancient world, stuff with kings and wars and let's say mid-level royalty, which is essentially what he is at this point. Things are super difficult, ambiguous, and like there's tons of gray.
But so much of what is in 1 Samuel is confirmation of progressive civility in early cultures,
Sure.
right? Like even the fact he uses a sling is showing technology has advanced more in David than it has in the Philistines. There are that's true. Okay. Him using a more advanced technique for killing is
It's as far as
point of
I was
civility.
aware, the Philistines also had slings.
for sure. But
Also, slings are like super ancient.
I mean, they would have been considered a more civil way to kill somebody.
Maybe, but slings have been around for.
They have like.
Fair enough. To me, it's just the difference between a sword and a gun, though, right? Like it's a little.
It's a technological jump.
And so if you keep looking at David through this lens of like he serves his Lord, right? Then you're getting this kind of like, oh, you protect the society that you're in, right? It's getting out of this tribal state. And now you serve a city state, you serve a government, right?
Sure.
I am loyal to my Lord kind of a thing. So it's the same thing with the Epic of Gilgamesh, right? Where a lot of his conquests are reinforcements of civility.
Well, yeah.
So
you definitely
David
have
being
that.
set up like this.
You definitely have that development, especially explicitly in the earlier chapters of Samuel,
Yeah.
and then followed through with David.
Mhm.
I think that's there.
You don't think this is part of it?
No, I think it's you could say that it's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that doesn't change how brutal and how complex and how gray
Mm.
ancient both
Yes.
ancient royalty systems interacted with one another, how nations interacted with each other. We're talking still even. Oftentimes what happens when we talk about kingdoms and kingdoms in the Bible is we will import height of medieval Western European ideas of kingdoms and kings, and we just immediately import them into the text.
For sure.
Oh yeah, Saul's
that's-
house is like physical house. It's tiny.
Oh, compared to that. And so it's like, so I think we
Yeah.
should be thinking more along the lines of warlords, ancient level stuff.
Yeah. I mean, like they.
Especially with those smaller nations. Once you talk about, let's say, Egypt or Babylon or
Then
the
you're talking about
Hittites,
empires.
but even Hittites might be a little.
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway, I went on a trail there. Sorry.
No.
about that.
This is good. It's just I think it's just, I guess, talk about it in layman's words, is we just have to recognize that this is a different time. God is working within the time,
Mhm.
which means he's working with warlords. He's working with brutal monsters. And that brutal monster, just like you, is sinful.
Mhm.
But the difference between a Christian and a non-Christian is, do you actually seek forgiveness? Or do you actually see yourself as evil and that you need forgiveness and that you need Christ? Or are you just trying to avoid a hard time? And that's the difference between all these other kings and David.
And that's the continuity with the people of God from New Testament to Old Testament.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that David, like you, though you are morally evil, though I am morally evil, like Saul and like David, the difference is that we in the church and David actually have a relationship with Christ, actually are contrite. Hopefully.
Yeah.
So,
We should move on.
yes.
We got more text to go through.
Yes. That was the end of 29, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
So we're going to move
29
on.
is a short chapter, but it's dense. It's
Yeah.
good.
I think it's set up like it's.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
This is a little bit more of a militaristic episode, which is nice.
Yeah.
That's why
No.
we're fighting more. No, not.
It
Actually.
is just cool. I love
Yeah.
studying the Bible, and then it's like, and then they went down and wrecked
Slaughtered.
house. Yeah.
Now, when David and his men came to Ziklag, sounds like a Pokemon, on the third day, the Amalekites had made a raid against the Geb and against Ziklag. They had overcome Ziklag and burned it with fire and taken captive the women and all who were in it, both small and great. They killed no one, but carried them off and went their way. And when David and
Gotta
his
catch
men,
them all.
That's a joke for very. Not. I guess Pokemon's more popular than I think.
and when David and his men came to the city, they found it burned with fire and their wives and sons and daughters taken captive. Then David and the people who were with him raised their voices and wept until they had no more strength to weep. David's two wives also had been taken, Ahinoam and of Jezreel and Abigail, the widow of Nabal of Carmel. And David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him because all the people were bitter in soul, each of his sons and his daughters. But David strengthened himself in the Lord his God.
That sucks.
Yeah. You hate to see it.
So, one of the things that's noted there is actually Klein makes a note there that, quote, such an assassination, the stoning of David, would seem to possibly, I'm inserting the word possibly, have legal connotations as if they were to execute their leader for failing to provide proper protection.
Which was the command that God gave to a king.
Yeah, but that's also the cultural understanding of that entire time.
Yeah.
Right. So
It's a lot of pressure.
yeah. Yeah.
Though this would be like what his first loss.
Sure. I do think that it's interesting that him being sent home at this time, think about it. If he wasn't sent home, the Amalekites would have taken them further, deeper in. They would have been dispersed. There'd be no way that he could have got all of his, like the rescue mission couldn't happen.
Yeah.
So not only by Akish, is it Akish? I've already forgot his name now.
It was the Akish sending him back.
Akish sending him back. Is it like best case scenario so he doesn't actually have to go in and kill fellow Hebrews? Also, it's
Almost as if.
Also, note that the Lords call them Hebrews, not Israelites, because even they denote that it's like, well, they're not following Saul, therefore they're Hebrews, not Israel. Anyway, there's this weird thing there.
Long associates them with the Hebiru, like the wayward shepherds,
The
more so,
nomad.
because they may have been closer to like a neutral party in the north,
Gotcha.
which could be part of the reason why he was in the north to begin with in Jezreel.
That's fascinating. So it's just providence.
Yeah.
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 Providence on like
God sovereignly taking him out of the battle.
operating on two levels, taking him out of the battle so he doesn't have to kill fellow Hebrews, and also sending him to a place where he can rescue.
Yeah.
Now, this is revenge, right?
Probably.
Because David killed the women and men of the Amalekites in chapter 27.
That's what Klein says. That's
Yeah.
what I think that's reasonable to conclude. Also,
it's
not only
almost-
do they raid, so as will be later on
Yeah.
stated by the Egyptian slaves that they said that is brought up, they raid other cities, but they burn Ziklag.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's almost like there's a
We
big,
know.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess killing all the inhabitants of those other villages, they still found out.
Mm-hmm. It is interesting that they use a similar tactic as David.
Yeah, but he killed everyone.
He did. But
They took them.
they took them, but it functionally does the same thing. Because now, yeah.
Also, I guess it assumes that all the young men are at war.
Mm-hmm.
It does say that they attacked Ziklag and overcame it, implying that there was maybe some resistance. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it
probably
doesn't-
old men fighting back.
I assume so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some 14-year-old kids got too courageous.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't, it's so difficult to understand ancient warfare, right? Like we don't really have a one-to-one with it because we don't fight in close quarters anymore. Like
It's so barbaric.
It's-
So
I mean,
it could be so immediate too, right? Like you're just out farming and then all of a sudden raiders show up across the field and you're like,
Mhm.
well, this is something that I think Dan Carlin does a good job at explaining how
Yeah.
awful it is.
that's actually what I was thinking about when I was talking
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
But like also in his description of how in modern warfare, one of the things we don't understand
Mhm.
is because when you're face to face, body to body, you're seeing the faces of people close up and you're just seeing bodies get hacked apart like that. Morale plays a bigger role then than it does now.
oh yeah. Most
Yeah.
of the time, armies weren't defeated by
Yeah.
casualties. Armies were routed by morale.
Yeah.
And that was actually the case until World War One.
Yeah. And so like because of how we conduct warfare now, that's part of the disconnect is because we're not seeing that. Also, a lot of countries didn't have standing armies, and so it's a lot of people just getting the family armor set on, maybe a helmet,
Sometimes
going to battle.
Rome changed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you see that with the hoplites in Greece. You see that
But
with
even that,
Yeah.
that's no standing army. The Assyrians did have
Yeah.
some.
150,000,
They
Yeah.
had a
which
and-
probably means 15,000.
Yeah. But Rome changed a lot of that.
Yeah.
You see it pop up, but then it just
Yep.
kind of becomes standardized. But yeah, warfare is very different.
Yep.
and it's hard to get into that world a little bit.
Yeah. And like,
Well, all of their kids, their wives are gone, and their cities burned. They have no resources,
Mm-hmm.
no family. They have nothing but really the shirts on their back that they took to go to war.
yeah,
Then their war material.
this is,
They have nothing.
Do you think there's also something going on here with David attacks them, but he didn't finish the command from,
To devote to destruction.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Because wherever he attacked, he did devote to destruction.
No, what I mean is that like, because Israel failed to eliminate the Amalekites originally.
I don't. Oh. In general, this may be
Yeah.
a plague upon Israelites
Yeah.
because they have not fulfilled God's word.
But what I mean
Sure,
is that,
but I
and
don't
then
think you can
also-
pin that on David.
No. I don't think that specifically, but David in invoking war with the Amalekites, but not finishing the job has just spurred the ire of them continuously that's on Israel now onto him.
I don't think so. I think that's just how war works.
That's fair. I guess what I mean is it could also be because David doesn't have the power, doesn't have the nation yet.
Okay.
So like that's why.
Could be. I don't know.
But yeah.
Anyway, city's
They fail.
burned. Everybody's
City's
sad.
burned.
David might die.
And David said to Abiathar, the priest, the son of Ahimelech, bring me the ephod. So Abiathar brought the ephod to David. And David inquired of the Lord, shall I pursue after this band? Shall I overtake them? He answered him, pursue, for you shall surely overtake and surely rescue. So David set out, and the 600 men who were with him, and they came to the brook Besor, where those who were left behind stayed. Then David pursued, he and 400 men, 200 stayed behind, who were too exhausted to cross the brook Besor.
Do you think he's using the ephod as divination again?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
But, well, I wouldn't say it's divination. I would say it's the proper use.
Fair enough. What's it called again?
We can argue about the Urim and Thummim.
Urim, Thummim.
Yeah.
We can argue about definitions, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Because that's all it is it would be it'd be an argument about definitions
Yeah.
of whether or not it's divination or
It's
not.
kind of just used as a holy coin flip a little bit.
Maybe, probably. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I used to think that, and now I don't know anymore.
It's an institution by God to get a response from him on what you should and should not do.
Is there another interpretation of that is just, this is what he wears to pray on, is he taking the role of a priest here and saying, I need an ephod because that's what priests wear. And I got to go inquire of the Lord. Because if I was like just a layman coming across it, that's what I would think. It's, he's putting on his prayer shawl, right? Like that kind of thing.
It might be one of the earliest connections between king and priest, but the thing I would go with is that the king was supposed to ask, was only supposed to, I think David is exemplifying before he's king actively the character that is go to God before you make these decisions.
Some of the time.
Some of the time. Well, and when he doesn't, God stops him.
Other than the fact that when he attacked the Amalekites and the other ones beforehand.
Which turned out horrible. Because this is happening.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, that's what I would say, is that it's the institution created by God to do this appropriately.
Yep.
So he only has 600 men. Right.
Now 400.
Now he has 400 men.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot.
Yep. But kind of like with Gideon, reduction of the army.
Actually, yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's at a brook.
Yep.
Wait, what does it say what brook it is?
Besor.
Besor?
Besor.
I didn't see if that was connected to the Gideon.
It's
Yeah.
at a brook. Okay. I'm beginning to see more connections.
They're exhausted, and the separation between the two was the men who
Couldn't make it over the brook.
make it over the brook because they're exhausted. But with Gideon, it was drinking with their face in the river rather than bringing water up to their face.
It's such a weird thing to me, and this is an immature association. But in my mind, it's like if God was like, take your army, but only those who pee sitting down. It's like, wait, what?
Well, no, there's a reason.
It's like,
Because
what is the reason?
when you have your face in your water, you can't see your enemy coming.
but
when you
that's
bring
not
them-
like a reason, though, right?
it's their
I think that's overanalyzing the text.
their mind is not on the call.
Again, I'm going to go with overanalyzing the text.
I don't think so,
Okay.
because he splits them for a specific action.
I'd be
I think
going
he splits
full
them
face
out of
in,
the
though.
outcome, and then that's the thing that he uses. The idea is just the whittling, the narrowing down to show for sure. This is now we're
Yes.
just arguing about judges.
No. But with Gideon, it was the point that was showing that you were going to win because it's me,
Mhm.
not you.
And I think he uses that as a tool. He doesn't punish the people who are not
No,
doing this specific
that's not
thing.
what I mean. What I mean is that the people who brought water up to their mouth had their mind on what they were doing, not just doing.
I don't think
They
that's,
were aware of what was
I
going on.
don't think that's why he separated them now. Like,
Not now. In Gideon.
I realize that. Now we're arguing about Gideon. Let's move on. We'll do a thing on Gideon just so we can argue about it if you want.
I enjoy this.
Okay.
I enjoy.
Caleb does not enjoy it.
I do. Thank you.
Every once in a while, I just like pushing, kind of like with the Disney Idol thing.
It's funny. He keeps bringing it up.
What, that Disney's inhabited by demons?
I mean, we're seeing it right now in the world.
Anyways, can we move on?
Yep.
Mickey Mouse's Masonic Temple.
They found an Egyptian in the open country and brought him to David.
Josh is surprised about this.
Whoa.
And they gave him water to drink. Sorry. And they gave him bread and he ate. They gave him water to drink. And they gave him a piece of cake of figs and 2 clusters of raisins. And when he had eaten, his spirit revived, for he had not eaten bread or drunk water for 3 days and 3 nights. And David said to him, "To who do you belong? And where are you from?" He said, "I am a young man of Egypt, servant to an Amalekite, and my master left me behind because I fell sick 3 days ago. We had made a raid against the Negeb of the Kerethites, and against that which belongs to Judah, and against the Negeb of Caleb. And he burned Ziklag with fire. David said to him, "Will you take me down to this band?" And he said, "Swear to me by God that you will not kill me or deliver me into the hands of my master, and I will take you down to his band." This band.
By the way, the Kerethites are probably Cretan mercenaries. Just FYI.
That's so cool.
So Philistines.
Kind of. Cretans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they may have come down from Crete.
Mm-hmm. Which, yeah, there's some like major ambiguity there that we don't really know. Mainly because are the Philistines sea people? Probably. What does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. To say Philistines is kind of like saying barbarians a little bit sometimes.
I don't think so.
Or to say sea people, sorry, is barbarians.
Yes.
But Philistines more specific.
Sea people are just ocean barbarians.
Yes.
They're just water barbarians.
Which is already taken by Vikings, though.
Is it though?
When you say, if I said water
they're kind
barbarian,
of amphibious.
you would be like, oh yeah, fair enough, Norse. Right?
Yeah, they're kind of both. I can see Vikings as like the frogs of barbarians.
What?
But I think the Philistines...
There's land-based barbarians.
Yeah.
There's water-based barbarians.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's amphibious barbarians. The Norse. They're water and land.
Fair enough.
They traveled the Atlantic Ocean to Nova Scotia. They also did massive land raids in Russia.
Okay, to Newfoundland, thank you very much.
Sorry, dude.
Not Nova Scotia. I mean, they went to Nova Scotia too, but... I literally live right beside where they landed, and you didn't even... Anyways.
I'm sorry, dude. Can I be wrong sometimes?
No. I won't allow it. I think you're too good for that.
No, but I think you then should correct me out of love and grace.
He is. You should see what he's mean.
What can I say? I come from the lands the Vikings left.
Anyway, moving on.
Yes. Fun that it's an Egyptian, though. It's not the first Egyptian slave in...
Are we going to read into that too? Sorry. I'm
You
sorry.
think David was like, oh yeah, I used to be Egyptian slaves.
So...
Well, okay. He
No,
does.
but he's an actual Egyptian that is a slave out of Egypt. Kind of like Hagar. Anyways.
Yeah.
Who's lost in the desert.
David is hospitable, like extremely hospitable. It's super nice. Good for him. What?
Josh reads into the passage. Caleb reads nothing into the passage.
I'm sorry. I'm just following the text.
Okay, let's continue. And when he had taken him down, behold, they were spread abroad over all the land, eating and drinking and dancing because of all the great spoil they had taken from the land.
I think you skipped some.
What did I skip?
Don't they have a whole discussion of like, or maybe I'm missing that. Did
No,
you read
I
already?
just read the Egyptian
I'm
part.
sorry. I was too ramped up about the Egyptian. I'm sorry. Forgive me.
I'm still thinking about Vikings, but I got my own stuff going on.
That's why I was like, oh, I see. We're just going to only talk about how he met an Egyptian, not the...
I thought we were going to
everything.
talk about more of that, and then okay, forgive me.
No. We can... They have a conversation. They're going to go rescue the people, and he's going to betray his people.
It's going to be his master, which already left him for dead because he was sick
Yes.
for 3 days.
So the guy's bad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes, you shouldn't do that. But also, if you're sick for 3 days and you're running to your homeland from raiding people, you don't want to just kind of wait around for your sick guy. At the same time, they do wait around to party. So like, yeah, he's bad.
Yeah, he's bad. Got anything else? Joel?
No.
Okay, I like the confidence. And when he had taken him down, behold, they were spread abroad over all the land, eating and drinking and dancing, because of all the great spoil they had taken from the land of the Philistines and from the land of Judah. And David struck them down with twilight until the what a buzzkill. David struck them down from twilight until the evening of the next day.
Dude, 2 days.
Dude loves to party.
Yeah, from the evening until evening. Yeah.
You do not want to invite. David has ruined every party he's been a part of.
And then it's his wife that ruins his party.
Yeah.
Anyway, I find it interesting that like they're sprawled out. This is a big raiding party.
Yeah.
It goes on later that only 400 of them escape.
Yeah.
His
And later
group
is the next line.
His group is only 400.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're talking lots.
Yeah. Okay. And when he had taken him down, behold, they had spread abroad over all the land, eating and drinking and dancing because of all the great spoil they had taken from the land of the Philistines and from the land of Judah. And David struck them down from twilight until the evening of the next day. Not a man of them escaped except 400 young men who mounted camels and fled. David recovered all of the Amalekites, had taken David, rescued his 2 wives. Nothing was missing, whether small or great, sons and daughters, spoil, or anything that had been taken. David brought back all. David also captured all the flocks of the herds of the people, drove the livestock before him, and said, "This is David's spoil."
I'm sorry you stopped and then I made a comment. I thought you were done reading it. Forgive me.
It's okay, Caleb.
That's so cool.
So, David takes the sheep.
Yeah, well, I do like the idea that they're just celebrating in like a open field. Like he goes over a hill, he just sees them all laid out. There's just him and 400 dudes, and it's like unleashes them into the party, and just boom, a full day, full 24 hours of them just rescuing people, cleaning house.
Yeah.
Wild.
There must have been a lot of people there to be fighting for 24 hours.
Well, it gives them plenty of time too. Think about it this time. If a large enough army, and they're like, oh, there's only 400 of them. Well, okay. Those of us who are right here, who are like a little bit further back from the fighting, let's regroup and then we'll counter assault. Because that's what happens.
Yeah.
And likely the reason why it lasted for 24 hours, at least in my thought,
It's probably multiple engagements on and off.
well, because they were like, oh, there's a tiny group of dudes. This is fine, whatever.
Except they have the Lord with them, so one man can chase away 1,000.
Mm-hmm. And so it's just like, my thought is the reason why it lasted so long is because they were like, this is small. We'll just counterattack and deal with it. And they just couldn't do it.
Yeah. David's men are just too good at fighting. Yeah.
That's a superpower you get after crying for a day because your city burned.
When you strengthen yourself with the Lord, like Samson.
I like this. I like that he wrecks the party. It's funny to me. It's like the optics of it in my head are so.
But also,
He just walks in and he goes, "Oh yeah, and the sheep are mine too."
Well, the people go, this is David's spoil.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I love is that, like, what a hero moment. Like, everybody's like trying to stone you. You failed. You're not the hero we keep singing that you are. You know, like that whole, it opens up with that. You failed. Like, blah, blah, blah. And then he just goes, dominates a greater force, rescues his wives and children.
Yeah.
Like,
Not losing anyone.
not losing a single person. It's a point.
It's hyperbole, likely.
10-0. Like he got all the points that game and the other team got none.
He's just biblical John Wick, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
He
don't
is
take his
biblical
horse
John
or
Wick.
whatever. Yeah.
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 The weed.
The weed. Beloved.
David's name in Hebrew, everybody.
Yes. Well, Greek, it's David. Hebrew, it's David. Sorry.
Well, it depends how you pronounce your vav.
You're right. Apps. I take that back.
I was afraid no one would think that I knew Hebrew, so I just had to say that.
No, good correction. Good correction.
You're welcome.
Yep. Shall we continue?
Oh, man.
Then David came to the 200 men who had been too exhausted to follow David.
They tired. Fair
and
enough.
who had been left at the brook of Besor. And they went out to meet David to meet the people who were with him. Then David came near to the people he greeted them. Then all the wicked and worthless fellows among the men who had gone with David said, because they did not go with us, we will not give them any of the spoil that we have recovered, except that each man may lead away his wife and children and depart. But David said, you shall not do so, my brothers. With what the Lord has given us, he has preserved us and given into our hand the band that came against us. Who would listen to you in this matter? For as this, his share is, who goes down into the battle, so shall his share, who stays by the baggage. They shall share alike. And he made it a statute and a rule for Israel from that day forward to this day. Good job, David.
Good.
Yeah.
Tactician.
Yeah. Hey, no, because those
Equal pay.
200 men also stayed.
With the baggage.
Well, not just the baggage. There was
Because they were tired.
There was other stuff there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they did their job.
They were tired, but they did their job.
Yeah.
And also, a good tactician knows when to,
Bring his A team.
well, not just bring his A team, but knows when to recognize the limitations of his own people.
Yeah.
Of his own troops.
Yep.
And not punish them when they reach their limitations.
And it's also consistent with God's law when he says, hey, if you don't want to go to battle because you have a wife, you don't want to go to battle because you've got stuff going on, blah, blah, blah.
Because you were just recently married.
Or, you're afraid you'll die. Like, you're getting old, whatever. Don't go. There's a whole, like, section of, like, where God gives
Pacifism.
grants.
And that's why pacifism is demanded in the Old Testament, right?
Well, no, it's just like there's grants because there's kind of an ethic where it's only the faithful should go to battle.
Mm. Yeah, fair.
That like, no, if your heart's not in it, don't do it.
Yeah. A
That
terrified soldier does not fight well.
yeah. And so David's kind of imploring that same ethic of like, no, they just didn't go with us this time. That's fine.
Yeah, they were so tired. They were so weak.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. Next time.
It's interesting.
And like before they said this is David's stuff, but it kind of seems like he's
Like they're saying, this is our stuff.
yeah.
And David's like, no, this is my stuff that I give to you.
Which is an inversion of Saul when they go and take the stuff.
Yep.
He says, no, the men took it. And then Samuel says, no, but it's yours. And they say it's his. Then they say it's theirs. And then he says, no, it's everyone's.
Klein goes
Yeah.
the same way, the word biblical commentator.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Let's finish this up.
Yes. When David came to Ziklag, he sent part of the spoils to his friends and the elders of Judah, saying, here is a present for you from the spoil of the enemies of the Lord. It was for those in Bethel, in Ramoth of Negeb, in Jatir, in Arior of Sipmoth, in Eshtemoa, in Rakal, in the cities of Jeremelites, in the cities of the Kenites, in Hamor, in Borshan, in Athak, in Hebron, for all the places where David and his men had roamed. Hey, thank you for helping us.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like even though Ziklag got burned,
Mm-hmm.
they have enough, like part of the thing burning is all of your resources, all of your crops, all of your food stored for the winter, all that kind of stuff gone. But it sounds like now that all their family's been restored, wives and children are reunited with their husbands and their fathers. It seems like they also now have not just like gotten back to the level that they have surplus and surplus enough to also share.
When you have been blessed, bless others.
That's your theology moment for this. I mean, it's not wrong.
Wow, dude.
That sounded again mean. I didn't actually mean that to be mean.
I know. Well, I think there's something else. David also, the language is very specific in that he didn't lose anyone and got everyone back in almost like redemptive way of that when like
he is the deliverer of the city. He is the Messiah of that city.
Yeah. But I mean like when Jesus rescues his people, he gets them all back.
So if I were to think hard enough, I could probably find a connection to the harrowing of hell.
Or to reckless love.
Or
but you don't have to think that hard for that book.
Yeah. But there's also a coming back with more. Same with that exile theme of you go, you lose, like you go and then you come back with more.
Yeah.
Same with the wilderness and same with the exile.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah. It's a little interlude before the saddest moment.
Yeah. The end of our Samuel series.
Our first Samuel series.
Not the death of Saul. The fact that our series has the head.
that cut you off guard.
We should bring this up, actually. If you have another book you think we should go through in this with the same detail and care that we have Samuel, which varies per episode, but drop a comment, drop an email, because we are right now in the life of second-rate saints. We can afford to be super responsive. We can afford to be, very one-on-one with our.
It's our goal to be.
Well, for sure, yeah, and we'd want to. That's part of kind of our mission is to create a conversational community around Scripture. We are getting close to the end of our episode. Is there any concluding thoughts we want to throw on the table and smack around a bit?
I'm sorry, Josh, if I was a little mean at points.
No, we apologize after the podcast is over. Come on.
No, I have nothing more to add.
Okay, cool.
Caleb, I love you.
Okay, again, guys, this is not about your relationship. This is about the text.
There is no relationship.
Okay, whatever.
That's part of the problem.
No. Interesting. Okay, this has turned into therapy with Josh and Caleb. So how did that make you feel, Josh? When he said David was not cool.
So it seems like, this is the point we made before, that the reason David goes on this excursion is because God played his sovereign hand so that David was stepped away from the battle so that he wasn't killing Israelites. He was instead killing Amalekites.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like providence is one of the big main biblical theologies throughout the entire text. I don't know.
Also, this comes off the story of Saul being attacked, going to God, getting no answer because God has rejected him.
Mm-hmm.
David then gets attacked, goes to God, gets an answer because God has chosen him. Not because,
Yeah.
And no, I won't go there. It's fine. Joel.
This is your weekly reminder. David did not use a claymore. He's
using Goliath's sword.
Yeah, probably not a claymore, though.
It would be a claymore for him.
Because claymores weren't invented for at least another 6,000 years.
It's super big.
6,000 years?
No, not 6,000.
It hasn't been 6,000 years since
like closer to 2.5.
No, because we're 2,000 years from Christ.
No, we're 1,000 years from Christ. Oh, is David 1,000? David's 1,000 years from Christ.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so like 3,000 years.
Fair enough. I went that conspiracy tangent where someone made up 1,000 years. You remember?
I've heard of this. Yeah. Anyway, you can tell we went to Bible school, not a real college. Anyway.
Jeez Louise.
Hey.
Don't insult my education, Caleb. You have the same one.
Now that we've spiraled,
I love spiraling at the end of episodes.
Yeah.
I feel like this is my little treat for getting to pay attention the whole episode.
Joel, my only point was that because he's using a giant's sword, it would be giant for him.
Sure.
It's definitely a two-handed sword.
Because it's too big, he can't dual wield.
But again, it doesn't make sense for him to have a claymore because claymore are anti-cavalry. Cavalry. I always mispronounce it.
A big enough sword, though, would also be used to chop off the tips of spears.
Yep.
Which
Yes.
would be super applicable in their warfare.
Yeah, that's cool. Anyways, let's break it down. You can
Also,
check
it's like
us out-
terrifying
Oh yeah, big sword.
because the
Scary.
Philistines know what Goliath's sword looks like.
Nobody knows what his sword
Unlike
looks like.
us, anyway.
Everyone who sees it dies. Anyways, that's just if I was gonna make, First Samuel an anime or something. Anyways,
I think it is.
you think it might be?
I think I've seen clips.
The best. Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Is there a Bible anime? I feel like there is.
There
I know
has
there's
to
the
be.
manga Bible.
Let's call some
That's
people.
pretty rough.
Second-rate Saints.
Up there with the
first.
I've already taken my headphones off.
Yeah, you're just not willing to listen to
It's
this anymore.
because he hates anime.
If you stopped listening this far, then just know so is Caleb. Check us out at secondраtesaints.com. If you have a long form question, secondраtesaints@gmail.com. If you'd like to see what else we're doing, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and keep an eye out for our book reviews and blog posts also on the website. If you'd like to donate to the future Second Rate Saints, we've got a Buy Me a Coffee link at buymeacoffee.com/secondratesaints. Guys, we have great things planned. So if you've listened this far, then we'll have some more for you next week.
Love
have
you.
a great week. We love you all. Hey, Mom. And have a good week.
Bow, 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 bow.